Okay guys, in today's lesson, I'm going to introduce you to Google Classrooms and show you how everything works, show you how to get to your assignments and access the material in the videos. I'm also going to start the next chapter for your class. Hopefully you enjoyed your spring break and were able to stay healthy. I'm going to walk you through how to get into your Google Classroom. So depending on what kind of computer or phone you're using, there can be a couple different ways to get into it. But the first thing you need to do is open up the internet. So on an Apple computer, it's going to be Safari. On a Windows computer, it's going to be Chrome or Internet Explorer or Firefox. So you open up the internet, and then you're going to want to go to Google. Once you get to Google, at the top right corner, you'll see Sign In. You click on Sign In. Go to the email account that the school gave you, and then you're going to type in your password. If you can't remember the password, contact one of your teachers, and they'll give you your login info and your password. So once you get in that, you should see these top right corner, these 9 little boxes. Click on it, and you're going to want to look for the classroom icon right here. So you click on the classroom icon, and that should open up all the classes that you've joined. So for me, it's either going to be government or it's going to be U.S. history. So what you're going to do, you're going to click on one of the classes, whatever class you're in, and you'll be able to see all the things that I've posted here. I'm going to have updates, and they're going to show up right here with my name next to them. It's also going to have different types of documents. So right here, you can see U.S. History Chapter 19 text, and that's where I'm going to put the textbook and the videos. So if you click on that, you see the file right here. You can open it up, and it's just like what we were doing in class. It's the entire chapter, so you can scan through it and you can read it and do whatever you need to do to get through the material. I'm also going to keep uploading the videos walking you guys through the material. And if something's wrong with the document, you can leave comments down here, and I'll be able to, fix the things that are broken or not working correctly. So back to the main page. You'll also see right here this little icon. It says Chapter 19, Lesson 1 and 2 questions. If you click on that, it'll open up a forum. It says Chapter 19, Lesson 1 and 2. So you click on it, and that's going to be your assignment instead of the worksheets. So all you do is you go through and you fill this out. So it says, what's your name? Some of them are going to be short answers, like this one right here. Some of them are multiple choice. You just select what you think the right answer is. And if you skip a question, it should highlight in red telling you, hey, you got to answer it. Once you're done answering all the questions, click on Submit, and that'll turn it into me, and I'll be able to grade it and get it back to you as quick as I can. So if you got any questions, send me an email or comment or contact me somehow, and I will help you out the best I can. Okay, so Chapter 19, Lesson 1. People all over America began discovering and using the country's natural resources. And natural resources are things like coal, iron, lumber, water, natural gas. Those are things we get from nature. And one of the things that became especially valuable during this time is something called petroleum. Petroleum is a liquid that comes out of the ground, and it can be made into fuel. So during this time, there's a large number of immigrants also coming to America, and the main reason many of them are coming to America is they are looking for jobs. There's also going to be some very strong business leaders that are going to be talked about in this chapter. Andrew Carnegie and John Rockefeller are the main examples, and both of them are entrepreneurs. And an entrepreneur is someone who starts a business. This time is going to be an industrial age. An industry, if you guys remember from class, means factories. So factories and businesses are going to grow a lot during this time. So I'm going to go to Andrew Carnegie first. Andrew Carnegie owned a construction company, and he saw that most of the buildings and bridges were being built mainly out of wood. And the main reason why is it was cheap, and it was easy to work with, and it was quick to use. One day he saw a company building a bridge out of metal, out of iron, instead of wood, and he wanted to get in that business. So he started the Keystone Bridge Company, and he wanted to build the bridges out of iron as well. But as he started doing that, he realized iron was not the best product. If you leave iron out and exposed to the weather, it'll rust. Iron also bends and breaks. So it doesn't bend very much before it cracks and fails. He knows steel is a better metal to use to build, but steel is incredibly expensive back then. Steel is mainly used for jewelry and other very expensive products. So, if they want to use steel for building, they have to figure out a way to make it cheaper. Back in the 1850s, a couple of guys had figured out a way to make steel cheaper, but it hadn't made its way over to America yet. William Kelly, an American, discovers a method to make the steel cheaper. There's also a guy named Henry Bessemer. He figures out a way to do it as well. So both of these guys figure out a way to make this steel more affordable. So Andrew Carnegie goes to England and he sees how Henry Bessemer is taking the iron and making it into steel. And what he does is he basically copies how this man is doing it. He comes back to America and he sets up a factory to make steel. He's able to make steel incredibly cheap compared to the other people. So he's making steel and he's selling it for less than other companies are selling iron. So it's cheaper and it's better and it's stronger. When they invented this new way of making steel, the cities in America changed. So they were able to make longer bridges and taller buildings. These new tall buildings were called skyscrapers. They would make lots of different products out of the steel since it resisted rust and it was much, much stronger. They would make things like nails, wash tubs, barbed wire. All kinds of different products are being made from steel. Andrew Carnegie's steel company becomes so successful, he's selling most of the steel to the people in America. He retires an incredibly rich man and he donates tons of his money to different causes like charities, colleges, and hospitals. He ends up giving away more than $350 million in his lifetime. So, lesson 2. A stream called Oil Creek flowed through the village of Titusville, Pennsylvania. It's pretty close to Pittsburgh. It's a pretty small town, not a bunch of people living there, but all that is about to change. They end up finding oil in the river, and oil was thought to be worthless at this time. Most people thought there was no use for it, but then a scientist found out that you could take this oil and you could turn it into something useful. You could turn it into kerosene that would be used in lamps and lanterns. So a guy named Edwin Drake travels to Titusville, Pennsylvania, and he drills for oil. At first, he's unsuccessful. He finds nothing. So he spends all this money drilling, comes up empty. So he decides to try again, take another gamble. So he drills and he eventually finds oil and becomes pretty wealthy. So what happens once he finds oil? Other people want to do the same thing. Just like when we talked about the gold rush in 1849, people rush into California to get gold. People rush to Titusville looking for black gold. And black gold is one of the nicknames they gave to oil. Once you would find the oil, you couldn't just use it right away though. You had to take it and you had to process it. They would turn it into things. And these factories, called refineries, were the places that would take the oil and turn it into a usable product. So a guy named John Rockefeller travels from Cleveland to Titusville, and he sees everybody drilling for oil. He wants to get rich too, but he realizes that drilling for oil is risky. And if you spend a bunch of money drilling for oil and never find anything, you've wasted your money. So he said, you know what? He doesn't want to do it. It's too risky this way. But he knows everyone who finds oil needs to take that and refine it and turn it into something better, turn it into a product, and he decides that that's what he's going to do. He's going to be the one that refines the oil. So he starts a company called the Standard Oil Company of Ohio. This company becomes incredibly powerful. It's basically making 3/4 of the oil for the United States. Okay, so let's go down to the bottom. How does business change during this time period? Before this time, most businesses were set up and they were owned by like one family or one or two people, and they were small businesses. But during this time, businesses are going to change into things called corporations. And a corporation is a larger company that's owned by shareholders, which means a bunch of people own a piece of the company, not just one person. Andrew Carnegie and John Rockefeller both get criticized because how powerful their companies become. Their companies become so powerful that nobody can compete with them. And the word for that is called a monopoly. So if you think about the board game Monopoly, the goal of it is to get all the money by owning all of the property. And a monopoly, when you're talking about business, is a business that is so big and so powerful, nobody can touch them. Nobody can compete with them. And a lot of people don't like monopolies because they think that the monopolies hurt the customers. What they can do is they can raise their prices as high as they want. So if you imagine you're the only pizza restaurant in the entire state of Ohio. If somebody wants pizza bad enough and they have to come to you, you can have your prices as high as you want. Or a better example would be a gas station. If there's only one gas station in town and they're charging $5 a gallon for gas, people are going to have to pay it because there's no competition. But once another gas station opens up and they lower their prices, they have competition. So monopolies would put these other smaller companies out of business so they can keep their prices high and keep making a ton of money. So a corporation is usually a safer type of business. If you invest all your money starting a business by yourself and that business goes under, it goes bankrupt, you lose everything. But a corporation is shared by a bunch of people, so there's less risk for each person. To get a piece of company, you have to invest some money or some capital. They don't just give pieces of their companies away for free. So these businesses, like Andrew Carnegie and John Rockefeller, their businesses wanted to grow. They wanted to make as much profit as possible. Andrew Carnegie, for example, did not want to depend on other companies. He knows that he's got to have the mines to dig up the iron. He knows that he's got to use the railroads to ship it and be able to process this iron, turn it into steel. And they keep raising their prices. They keep charging him more and more because they know he's making a bunch of money. So what he decides to do is he says, well, if the railroads are going to charge me more money, I'm just going to buy the railroad. So he would buy all of the pieces he needed for his company and combine them into one giant company. This is called vertical combination. John Rockefeller, he sets up his monopolies differently. He decides to get rid of all of his competition. So if someone else opens up a business doing the same thing as him, he's going to do everything he can to put them out of business. He might offer to buy their company, or he could drop his prices down low and keep his prices down low so you have to drop yours too. And if he does that long enough, you'll go out of business because you don't have as much money as him in the bank. This is called horizontal combination, when you buy your competition up. Andrew Carnegie and John Rockefeller both were able to grow their companies so they were incredibly powerful. Nobody could compete with them, and they had monopolies. Another word for a monopoly is a trust company. So these giant corporations and businesses, they would do some good and some bad. They would give thousands of people jobs, but they would also get rid of the competition and they would keep their prices high. Okay, guys. So go on to Google Classroom like I showed you and fill out the worksheet that says Chapter 19, Lesson 1 and 2. If you have any questions, you can comment on the video, send me an email, or contact the school and I will help you out the best I can.